although it wasn't the club's fault, these things happen. But I should have stuck it out. But I have massive regrets about what I've done. I don't think I've actually told anybody that before.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the PSA Podcast. Today we're absolutely delighted to be here at Portadown Football Club and have their current manager, Niall Currie, on the show.
Hey Matthew.
It's a pleasure to have you on now.
Thank you very
looking
much.
forward to what we have to chat about today. We asked the same question to everybody at the start now, just how did you first get into football? What was your first kind of introduction to the game as a young kid?
I think it's just like most stories for young lads, you know. Dad, you start off in the school teams and stuff like that, and then if you get picked in the school teams, then your dad has to start running you around the place, and you know, obviously when you get out of primary school and stuff like that, and hopefully you get offered, you know, a few wee youth clubs and stuff like that. So yeah, basically it was my dad running around the country and bringing me everywhere I needed to go for the Northern Ireland trials, and you know, from the schools football, and then I got my trials with the Northern Ireland schoolboys and stuff like that there, and as I say, it was pretty much the same kind of story as everybody. Everything owed probably to Dad, and running around after he done for me, and buying my boots and buying my gloves and all that there stuff, you know. So yeah, pretty much the same as every other kid, you know. It was you know, things just evolved, and then when you get older, you think you know everything, and then your dad tells you don't.
So you're a goalkeeper, or you were a goalkeeper?
I was.
Were you always in that position, or were you sometimes goalkeepers or outfielders maybe who didn't get on or stuff like that? How did you kind of come across? Because goalkeepers, I don't think we've had a goalkeeper on the show yet. But
I always thought I was a number 9, but unfortunately, I think listen. Whenever we were in the schools and stuff like that there, you know, they would have threw me in nets and I'd have made a couple of good saves, and suddenly you were stuck there. So I think once I accepted that, I pretty, you know, but I did like doing goals, you know. I went up to the green with my friends and stuff like that, and I was always the one with nets. If I got if I got playing outfield, it was luck, you know. It was just one of them ones where an all goalkeeper was there or something. But no, it was. Listen, I enjoyed it, you know. It was a good experience, and as I say, it's a pressurised position. It's one of very, very well, you know. You make one mistake as a goalkeeper, it's over for you, you know, and everybody's looking at you. But no regrets. I was decent, and as I say, I had a real fun during my career.
So you found your position in nets. You started then becoming quite good and realising you might be able to make a bit of a go at this. Was there kind of a certain point where you thought, I'm going to, you know, go for this as a not as a career but as a position, and you know, what was your move into like proper club football then?
I was really small, and I'll be honest with you, Matthew, there was never any inkling that I knew a lot of people had said to me that I was very talented, but I was always too small. So I think around the 16s, like I remember doing the schoolboy trials and being asked what height my dad was and stuff like that there, you know. Unfortunately, my dad was only 5'4", so I think that once I heard my dad was 5'4", it was put me to the side, you know. So unfortunately, during that there period of time, then I went and as I said, yeah, I'd done my schools at the SO Cup finals with Attack, and then I went and played for Mid-Ulster clubs. I went to my own Rangers. I played for them when I was 16 years of age. And went on and played for Tandragee Rovers and stuff like that there in the Mid-Ulster. And then it was, whenever I was about 5'6" till I was about 17, 18, 5'7" maybe. And then from I was 17 to about 19, I got a wee growth spurt. And suddenly, you know, I remember whenever I went to Loughall then, Alfie Wiley signed me for Loughall, and I was playing for Loughall, and we drew Bangor in the Irish Cup, and then the League Cup in them days. And I remember Nigel Best coming over and goes, "What?" He didn't even recognise me. And I remember he was part of the schoolboy setup, you know. So he said, "Where'd you get the height from now?" So it was real just luck, I suppose. I got a wee growth spurt and I got myself up to 5'10" and a half. And in them days you could get away with that if you were smart, you know. So you know, I always talk about Andy Gorham if he could do it. And he was the same height. I remember Andy Gorham coming to my work, and standing beside him and going, yes, you know, he surprised me. I have a chance now. That's probably when I first believed that I could maybe have a wee career in the game. Knew it was never going to be anything special, but I look back on my playing career and I'm very proud of it. You know, it was a banger for going on 10 years. I had my testimonial season there, and you know, I look back on my career with great pride, because again, Matthew, I proved a lot of people wrong, and that's what I like. That's what I like to do. You know, I was told I'd never make it because of my height, and judged on that there for a long time. And even at 5'10", 5'10.5", you were regarded as a small goalkeeper anyway. Yeah. It was better than 5'6" or 5'7". But you know, I'm very proud of what I've done in my career. I played at the top level, and as I say, I had many great memories.
So you're playing at the top level. You're playing. You've kind of made it, not against all odds, but you've kind of, you know, come from a position where you didn't really think you would get a lot of appearances at the top level. When then did the kind of coaching and management come into your head? Was it kind of run alongside your playing career, or when did that kind of first come into?
I got a really serious. I was playing for Bangor under Alan Fraser, and it was actually on the Saturday against Armagh City. I got a really serious injury. I got my tib fib on my leg broke, and it was in the 94th minute, and we had the cup final against the Glens on the Tuesday night, and we were flying at the time, so it was a huge blow. But I had tib, fib, and all my ankle ligaments shot, and I think I was out of football for 18 months. I think I was 27 at the time. So once I came back, it was suddenly you're 29, you know, and it wasn't right. My leg wasn't right. My ankle wasn't right. The tib and fib were fine, but I had massive issues with my ankle. Every time I played, I couldn't train properly on a Tuesday. I had to ice it up on Thursday. I ended up, I was only training one night a week. And playing a game on a Saturday, I just didn't have the spring no more. I didn't have the movement that I used to have. And again, age is age, as they say, you know. So I was 29, coming 30, and the leg wasn't right, and I knew it wasn't right. But I turned around, and I think after that I tried again. I came back for Bangor, and to be fair to Alan Fraser, he gave me a new contract. That's why, you know, I ended up having a testimonial at Bangor, because the loyalty that they showed me as a player was unbelievable. And you know, to give a guy who's probably, people's talking about his career being finished, they give me a new contract, and they paid my wages, and they were unbelievable to me. So I felt I had an obligation to make sure that I give it my very best to come back and play for him. Yeah. And I did do that, and it was very difficult to accept that, you know, something was missing, and I had to accept that ultimately. But you know, the irony to the whole story is that I took a wee break then, and I went to Dungannon Swifts unknown in January. I was still trying to convince myself but I felt myself getting back a wee bit. My ankle wasn't swelling up as much after a wee break. You know, I wasn't having that much pain on it anymore. I could train on a Tuesday night without any effect on a Thursday night's training. And I said, hold on a second here, there's still a wee bit left in the tank, you know. So I decided that, you know, I went to Dungannon in the January transfer window, and they were sitting top of the league, or second or top in the league, and I played every game, near enough every game for them the rest of the season, and we got promoted that season, and that was it for me. You know, I had ended in a fantastic environment with a fantastic manager who showed belief in me. You know, and Joe McAree at Dungannon, he showed unbelievable faith in me. You know, to take me on at that time. In fact, he swapped his leading goal scorer. Kevin Bates, went to Bangor in the swap, which is some statement, signing me and letting his leading goal scorer go. So I was over the moon to go to Joe, and I was so motivated to go to Joe whenever he came in for me. And speaking to that man there, he would just lift you and make you feel 100 foot tall, never mind 5'10.5", you know. Yeah. So whenever I got there, I had a wonderful time, and he treated me like a king. Thankfully, we came over the line at the Swifts, and we got that was their promotion. They haven't been out of the Premier League from it. So once that was done, then, you know, Joe was trying to convince me to give it a go in the Premier League again. And I think I just said to him, listen, I'm not. I don't think I could do it at that level anymore. You know, you had wonderful strikers in there in the Premier League. You can get away with a certain degree in the Championship, and I was good enough to play in the Championship. But I just said to myself, listen, I'll end in a high. And then so we parted ways, and big hugs and big thank yous from Joe. And I had retired basically, And then I got a phone call, of course, from Colin Malone at Armagh City, and he just made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I'm not going to tell any lies about it. So he wanted promotion from the Championship, and Armagh had a really good side at that time, and I felt I had a massive opportunity to maybe to get promoted. So we'll give it another year, as I say. And unfortunately, we finished second in the league that year, and that was whenever I decided, I think I was 31, decided to wrap things up, and that was me done. So I had 100% retired, and then I got the job just down the road. Anna United had a vacancy. They had reapplied to stay in the Championship 2 at the time. And I thought at 31, I always had aspirations. I always listened to the managers that I went through. I went through some great managers, and with Colin McCurdy's advice, I had Nigel Best's advice, I had Alfie Wiley's advice, and Joe McAree's and stuff like that. And I spoke to Joe, and what do you think? I was only 31 at the time, and Joe said, "Listen, you're a natural man in the change rooms, a natural leader. So we, go for it, son." So I ended up, I got an interview down at the Anna, and I took the job on.
Just straight out of playing, there was no, that was your first kind of go at managing. There was no previous experience.
Nope, absolutely zero. And I think whenever I look back on it now, I'm really, really happy that I made that decision, and it was probably the right time. But again, I would advise any young people to get their coaching sorted out first, because I would basically went in there with no coaching experience or anything like that there, but I knew it would be a good, I'm good with players, I'm a good communicator, I can get the best out of people. So that's why it was important that I brought Jay Willis and Mickey McKeown along with me. Mickey was a long time player with me at Bangor and stuff like that there. He was a real top player in his day, and done fantastic coaching, and Jay Willis was the same. Two really good, Mickey was a real strong character in the change rooms, and Jay Willis was a great coach. So it was important that I got surrounded myself with the right people, Although you wouldn't have thought that at the start, to be honest, was that I think come Christmas time we were bottom of the league again, and we'd lost 7 in a row, and my chairman had stopped speaking to me. So it was a situation where we weren't too far away with that on a team from being a competitive team in that league, but it got to a situation where I remember polling nights we were beat 4-2 at PSNI, and we were really, really good in the game, and we conceded 4 shocking goals. And I remember turning around to Big Mickey and Jay, and after the game was over, and I said, "Right, I'm playing next week." And I looked at Mickey McKeown, who was about 35 at the time, and I says, "And you're going to play in the number 6. And all we're going to do is that. All we're going to do is talk to everybody around us and help them." Because that was, to me, communication is so important on a football pitch. And to me, that was the big thing for me, that it was so lacking in the team. It was really, really lacking in the team. And I could go in there, wasn't what it was, but I was still only 31 at the time, so I had a wee bit about me. I still had experience about me. So I went in and played, and we brought Mickey in. He wasn't too happy about it, mind you, but we brought him in the 6th, and the two of us were just 2 experienced players along with a lot of young players, and I think we ended up 4th in the league that season. Went from bottom. I think we were unbeaten from January on, once me and Mickey started playing.
And did you play from then on in?
Played another 2 years, and I didn't have one problem with my ankle. Not one issue that I have with my ankle. Not one problem that I have. And as I say, it was a brilliant experience. I ended up playing, I was 33 actually, but it wasn't what it was, but I was still good enough to play at Championship 2, and I enjoyed it. It was good crack as well. It was very difficult, double job. I have to be honest. There have been Saturdays where you'd have threw one in.
Yeah.
You were 1-0 down at half time, and you're the guys that got to go into the changing room and get at people and get them up for it, and you're the ones so you had to just go through the door and go, "Sorry, my fault," straight away, and get that out of the way, and then just get on with the team talk. So no, it ended up being a fantastic experience at the Anna, and as I say, it was a real learning curve for me. But again, if you're a good communicator and stuff like that, surround yourself with good coaches, and there's plenty of them about.
So you retired again then after the couple of years.
Well, I knew. Listen, whenever Loughall came from me, Alan Davison was the chairman, and they had a brilliant goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So that was me. Happy days. I was able to get into my own genre of right. I'm going to be the manager now. And I was very young. I was still only about 34, and I had players playing from older than them. You know, I brought big Alan Murphy to the club, a big centre half, and he was an unbelievable player, 34, 35. Yeah, it was one of them things where it was a great opportunity for me as well. But you know, the expectations from Alan Davison, the chairman at the time, was huge, and I knew that at least I had Mark Robinson there, so I was going to be able to focus on fully and not be sitting on a Saturday worrying about my own performance.
Yeah.
And having Mark there was a godsend, because he was a fantastic goalkeeper and a real leader, great captain. So he gave me a great foundation.
So you say there you moved from Anna to Loughall. Was that then, that move, was that a result of doing well with Anna, or how did that first move? For the Anna Championship 2 at that time, you know, who had reapplied to stay in the league the season before, I think we had two fourths and a fifth in my 3 years there, and that's good going. And with a final of a Mid-Ulster Cup, with a semi-final of an Intermediate Cup, so we've done really well. But you know, it was a great 3 years at the Anna, and again, it was really hard to move on, you know. But you know, sometimes whenever you get an opportunity, and Loughall at that time was Alan Davison there, was he had invested heavily in the club, and he wanted the club to be successful. And I knew that if I wasn't successful at Loughall at that time, Alan would have had no problem just saying next, you know. So I knew what I was going into. But them 3 years that I done at the Anna gave me the foundations to go into a much more pressurised situation. And again, you've got to embrace that. You know, I say to players all the time, I could have had the easy way out instead at the Anna for many, many years. But you know, your aspirations and then the challenge of and that more pressure, I think you should embrace them things. Is that the thing that drew you to Loughall then? You're obviously, your personal ambitions, you want to push yourself on, you want to challenge yourself at a higher level?
100%. I thought that we had probably got to the end of the journey with the Anna situation, because I remember we were trying to push on. We had options to sign a couple of players, really experienced Championship 1 players, who would have came to us, but we just didn't have any finance, you know. And we didn't have 25 quid a week or 30 quid a week to sign another player. I think we had 3 guys at the Anna were in 25 quid a week, you know, and the rest of the boys were all local lads and just good lads, you know. And the club found it very difficult. We wanted to add another 2 and get them 25, 30 quid a week or something like that there, but we couldn't financially do it. So I think I realised at that time, listen, I would have stayed and battered away for another season, no problem. But you know, I think whenever Loughall come for you and you get that opportunity to go to the club, and the chairman was hugely ambitious, then you know, it's a pressurised situation, but you know, it's certainly a situation that you have to embrace.
So you had it for Loughall then, and did you bring your coaching staff with you? How were you kind of like, you're only 3 years management at a pretty good level. Were you confident in making the step up to that next step? Were you bringing your coaches with you? How were you kind of like building your own like manager, like your personality or your backroom staff to make that next step up?
Well, firstly, Jay and Michael came with me, and secondly, you know, people don't, you know, I played 200 odd games for Loughall as a player. I know people wouldn't even probably know that, but I was with Alfie Wiley, and I played, as I said, for four years at Loughall, from 19 to 22 or something like that, but or 18 maybe it was, but I was very young. But I played over 200 games for Loughall, so I had met all the people. I knew everybody that was out there, and whenever I went out, I remember going out and speaking to Alan Davison, and I'd seen the familiar faces of Hubert and, you know, and Flo and stuff like that there, and Neil Anderson and people like that there. So, you know, it was pretty much a homely experience. But yeah, we had to take obviously Michael and Jay with me. But yeah, it was to me it was the next transition. You know, the next transition into more pressure, you know, more expectations. Whenever I arrived at Loughall, you know, they'd just been relegated from the Premier League that season, and I think they one player, maybe two players under contract. So you had Dara Peden and Mark Robinson, if I remember right. So there was a whole rebuild needed from start to finish. Now, we had to then sit down with, I think we re-signed about another 6 or 7. So we're sitting basically at that stage with only about 8 players. So we had to bring in a lot of new faces, and thankfully we hit the ground running, and it was a memorable season. That first season at Loughgall, we done the whole clean sweep and won every trophy going.
And how do you go from 8 players at the start of the season to winning everything? You know, because you're bound to sit down at the start of the season and think, right, if we can be competitive, you know, you only have 8 players on the books. You can't be thinking we're going to win everything going here. How do you go from such like a low to such a high in the space of one season?
I think I had a lot of contacts in the game, and I was able to get loan deals from Glentoran. I remember getting a fantastic loan deal off the great Alan MacDonald from Matty Burrows. He loaned us Matty Burrows for a season. I think Matty scored 20 odd or 30 maybe. Just before he hit the big time of the Glens. So we were able to dip into that market. We signed Lucas Adamczyk from Glentoran as well, who him and Matty were lethal, and we had Dean Smith, obviously, who I knew for a long time had been at Coke and Glenavon and stuff like that. So I was able to tap into really, really good players. You know, the loan deals are always they're always a roll of the dice. You know, you're getting potential, but you're not too sure physically they can deal with the physicality of the Championship one, especially from youth football, because they're moving from their under 18s, 19s, and coming and playing in the Championship one. So you're always rolling the dice a wee bit. But we're saying the likes of a Brian Adair, who had a great career as a midfielder. We had, I brought Andy Smith to the club, again through just friendships and contacts, and we were able to assemble a really, really good squad. And it ended up, once you assemble a squad and you have the balance of the squad, we signed Marty Lavery from Armagh City, and we signed Rand Moffat from Banbridge Town. But the congestion of the whole thing was basically, these were all local lads. There was nobody really, bar Lucas and wee Matty. There was nobody else. Everybody else was within that area. Banbridge, Armagh, Portadown, and so we were able to, as I say, tap into the knowledge that they had. Jay Willis was a fantastic help with that. And once you sign one player, you signed a Brian Adair, for instance. Brian Adair was probably my first big signing, because we only had Mark and Dara Peden. So whenever I got Brian Adair over the line, then Brian Adair was able to say to me, you need to speak to Rand Moffat, or you need to speak to Glenn Waddell, and you need to keep him. So you're always ears open, and getting, if Brian said to me, I have a pixie here, go and speak to him, he's keen to come. Then we've done it one at a time, really. And then I knew wee Marty Lavery, and I fancied him for ages, and I could never get him, could never afford him. And we were able to get him, and then it just built, and then we signed Alan Murphy from Man United, who was unbelievable, 34 years of age. People were saying to me, why? He's 34 years of age. He ended up playing all 3 years at Loughgall, quite comfortably. So we had Alan, we had Dara Peden, suddenly we had Glenn Waddell re-signed. We then had Brian Pantlin, Noogie Pantlin, who was at the club and not happy and was ready to leave. A lot of them were ready to leave. Obviously, the trauma of a Premiership season can be hurtful, and I've been there with ours. But we had a fantastic backline with a great goalkeeper, Mark Robinson. Brian Pantlin was as good as any left back you'll see at that level. Glenn Waddell was the same. Dara Peden and Alan Murphy, and then we had Rand Moffat on a wing flyer, and we had Marty Lavery on the other wing flyer, and we had Brian Adair, Andy Smith, Willie Hearn, all Van for midfield, and we signed Davy Hawthorne as well. So with 4 midfielders, I always like two players for every position. And then we had 4 strikers, so we were able to build that squad. But I remember the first game, we went down to Tobermore, and it was a real eye-opener for, it was a big day. We'd signed all these players, and the expectations around the place were signed. Everybody knew we were signing good players at Banbridge Towns, at Armagh Cities, but to gel them and stuff like that's very difficult. And I remember going down to Tobermore in our first game, and we were 1-0 down. And we had Glenn Waddell sent off, and we came in at half time, and we were 1-0 down, and it had been an awful day, just a disaster. And I remember turning around to Jim Mickey on the sidelines going, this has been nothing but a cluster. And we nicked a goal, about 10 minutes to go. And then I remember we scored a winner in the 93rd, 94th minute. And that was, to me, that was the kick moment. That was the kick moment that went, wow, we've got good players at this club, but we've also got a wee set of, as you know what, guts.
So then, so early on in the season, then signing all these good players, did you kind of think we can really go on and do something here, or were you just taking it a game at a time, or did you set yourself targets, or were you just kind of just seeing where it went?
I forgot one player there, Neil Allardyce. We signed Neil Allardyce from Lisburn Distillery. What a player he was for me as well. So sorry, Neil, apologies. But sorry, go ahead, man.
Just saying there, having all these players signed, expectations were high. Did you kind of target to go on? Obviously, don't you target to win every game, but did you think we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, or did you just kind of take it as it came?
I think you just, and I know it's an old cliche, Matthew, but it's one game at a time. And I think once we got that second win, and then you get the third win, suddenly we've won 3 in a row. That's how the season started. The season started fantastically, and then it was 4 in a row. And we had Bangor in our league at the time with Paul Miller as their manager, and they were the big chiefs. They had the big dough, and they were signing really, really top players from proper clubs, on good dough. So we knew that Bangor was going to be really, really hard to beat in that season. But we got off to a great start, and suddenly whenever you get off the 2 or 3 wins, you get momentum, and then you get belief, and then you get confidence, and then from that moment on, I started to believe, something. I don't care about Bangor. We're a really good side, and we can go toe to toe with anybody in this league on our day. On our day, we can be the very, very best. And I think it was confirmed today. I think it was we were maybe 2-3 points ahead of Bangor in the league when we played them for the first time. And I think we're 4-0 up after 35 minutes at our place, and it was just sensational. I think that was the moment. That was a particular moment that I says, yeah, we have a massive chance here. We're a really, really good side, and we had odds in the league, and it was a tough league that year. But it was certainly that was the moment, I think, when we beat Bangor up at our place 4. I was at half time. I think it ended up 5, but we beat them, and they had some really, really good players, real experienced players, top players, and we put them to the sword that day. And I think I was that day there. I turned around. I remember speaking to Jane, speaking to Michael, and I was the day I said, we're a decent side here, and we have a chance, And again, I never look too far ahead, Matthew. I'm always just, you don't get ahead of yourself. Let's keep our feet in the ground, and that's what we've done with the boys. We just go about our business nice and quietly, and I used to say to the players all the time, we're the country bumpkins, and everybody laughs at. I says, I used to say all the Belfast teams come down here and they're laughing and joking about the country bumpkins. Let's show them the country bumpkins today. And that used to be a part of my team talks regularly. Well, our guys were all countrymen, and we used to call the Belfast teams the big smoke, the big timers. So we were able to what I call it, we were able to get great momentum and the realisation that, there was a real togetherness with that team. You don't achieve what we achieved in that season will never be done again. We done 5 trophies in one season, won the league and won Ulster Cups and Intermediate Cups and League Cups, and it was Bob Ratcliffe. So it was an unbelievable achievement that will never ever be done again. I'm so proud of that day. And it's up in the Lockall lovely big picture of our 5 trophies sitting in front of everybody at the end of the season. It was a special season with a really, really special group of players. Because ultimately you can guide and you can try and help and you can bring a togetherness and you can bring belief in the players, but they're the guys who have to cross the white line. They're the guys who have to go that extra mile for you. And for me, it's about getting players to run through fire and brimstone for you and go that extra mile, chase lost causes and empty their tanks. And thankfully we've done that season.
So you come to the end of your first season at Loughgall, very successful season, winning all 5 trophies that were available. What was kind of the next step then? What kind of happened after that, or how do you better that, or was the Irish League Premiership the next step?
Aye, well, I think we had discussed. I think the chairman wanted to get the club a good foundation again, because I think the traumatic experience of the Premier League season, the season before, had put a lot of holes in things, if you know what I mean. So we decided that we wouldn't take our opportunity to get promoted into the Premier League again. And then I think that was the case for the following season as well. But yeah, it was disappointing. I would like to give it a rattle at that time for sure. But ultimately, if, the chairman knew what the club needed, and listen, I was just over the moon to be really in a situation where I had a really good side and we were very successful. But it was tendered with definitely a regret that we didn't take that team into the Premier League twice.
And how did the players react to that? Because you would imagine, after all their hard work, hours and hours of training and matches and being so successful.
I think if I can remember right, and it might be a bit hazy on it, to be honest with you, Matthew, but I think that the players knew right from the get go that if I don't think anybody was expecting us to win the league, So, but whenever the topic starts coming up, whenever you're winning games and you're sitting top of the league, I think the topic came up and it was crushed straight away. Everybody was told straight away, don't be worrying about next season. You just concentrate on this season and we'll take it from there. And again, we were able to re-sign all the players the next season again. So they weren't that hurt by it, if you know what I mean, in regards to that. But I think a lot of them, certainly would have deserved getting a rattle at the Premiership again. But having said that, everybody was happy. We had a real group of players that was together, and we were all friends as well. And I'm still around some of the, I wasn't that much older than. That's not the way I am now. I'm 50 now, and I'm coaching. I'm managing players at 19 and 24, and that's 25, 26 years I have on them. So whenever I was managing a Loughgall, I was maybe 2 or 3 years older than most of the players. So I think all the boys knew that I was fair, and I was fair with everybody. I treated everybody the same. I was very straight, very honest, and very upfront, and nothing was ever personal. So we would have played our games, and even the games we lost and stuff like that, you just move on. But as I say, I have lost my temper a few times with the boys, but it was never ever personal. I don't do individuals. I speak to them privately. But we, as a collective unit, any games that we lost and stuff like that there, we were able to move on very quickly because I knew my heart was in the right place. I might have been cross that afternoon, but they always knew that there was no grudges, no huffing about, no taking anything personally. And then we went on the Tuesday night and started again.
So your first season, 5 trophies, back-to-back leagues. What then was the next move personally? You moved on then.
We got this stage at Loughgall where the finances had been. There was a problem with the finances, and we sat in the January window, and we had to lose. I think we lost 9 players, left the club, in regards to the finances and stuff like that there. So it was really hard to take as a manager. Now, when I look back on things now, my decision to leave and resign at Loughgall, I wouldn't do that now. I should have stuck it out. I should have stuck it out the end of the season with the club. I regret actually resigning now, many years on. And I should have stuck the season out with the club. But I was that hungry for success. I think we were sitting second in the league, and then losing everything, the core of your team, was hard for me as a young manager to take. Even though it wasn't the club's fault, these things happen. But I should have stuck it out. I regret not sticking it out there. I should have, as a matter of principles and morals, it was my duty to stick it out. That's how I look at things now at 50 years of age. At that time, I looked at it like a child, huffing and saying, "What? I built this here, and now you're just dismantling it." Right, toys out of the pram situation, But I have massive regrets about what I've done. I don't think I've actually told anybody that before, but it doesn't sit well. The older you get, it never sat well with me. And I remember big Alan Murphy and Mark Robinson taking the team on the rest of the season, and me sitting in the house doing nothing, huffing, which is poor in my opinion. And that's a massive regret I have. I should have stuck the season out. No matter what, we were never going to go down. We could always gather up, 6 or 7 players that would keep us in that league, and that's what I should have done. So I have massive regrets in regards to resigning at that time. If I had to do it all now, I would never have done it. I would have stuck the season out. and then would have sat down with the club and had that conversation. So yeah, that's one of the things I look back on with regret. I don't have too many regrets, Matthew, but that's definitely one thing that I look back on with regret.
So that was the January, or kind of like mid-season.
Yeah.
And then you spent the rest of that season then with no club, with no job.
No, 100%.
What then was the next move?
Well, I think I didn't even get. There was nothing on really for about 8 months. I sat for about 8 months, playing a lot of golf and getting my handicap down. And so I got a phone call out of the blue from Brian Adams down at Ards. And that floated my boat. The travelling didn't float my boat, mind you. But I had travelled to Bangor for so long, it was basically the same kind of distance and travel and stuff like that there. So I met Brian Adams at the Four Trees in Mara, sat down. I think we talked to each other for 20 minutes and he offered me the job. And it was another, me and him as two people really, really clicked straight away. Gentleman, honest as the day, straight as the day, just the same as myself. So we were able to we were coming off the same pages. Ards had been struggling for many, many years from the left the Premiership. I think there were 10 years in the Championship whenever I arrived. Whenever I arrived, they were sitting second bottom in the Championship. And I think we finished that season in their highest position in the Championship they'd been in 8 or 9 years. Or I think we finished fourth. So we were able to get a foundation in place. We brought in a few players in January. But Brian Adams had massive faith in me. And I think, I'm a great believer, if you've got the right people behind you that will back you through the good times and the bad times, then you have that in your, you know that regardless of how bad it goes, you've got somebody who's got your back. Mm-hmm. And I think it's vital for any club to have a chairman like a Brian Adams who no matter what happened on the good days and the bad days, was always there for me and always backed me and was openly very, so to have him behind me, he gave me the platform. He's very strict with his budget, mind you, but he gave me the platform then. Once we got that season over, everybody was over the moon. We started bringing the crowds back. Ards is a really, really potentially huge club still, and they have a huge fan base as well. And the second season, we were able to get a squad together and we won the league, and we got ourselves into the Premier League.
I already know, you're a couple of clubs that you've been at already, and it has been like that near enough throughout all your. And I mean this with the greatest respect. You go in and it just seems so dead, and it seems like, the next best thing we can do is just turn up, and then all of a sudden you just, I'm a coach as well, and working with players and working with teams and all. What do you do? It's more than just putting a train. You just don't go and put a drill on and put a training session on. What do you do to go about building a squad, and how do you get the best out of players every club? What's the secrets, or what do you do? Is there a certain process you go through, or do you just go in and you just play the field, just whatever it is?
I think you'd be a people's person. That's just how I do it. I get to know the players, I get to know their characteristics, I get to know their personalities. I get to what I'm good at is I feel anyway that I can get to know what you need. I can get to know very quickly what I need to do with you to get the very best out of you. Mm-hmm. I'll judge that very quickly with people. Do you need a hug? Do you need a hug? Do you need a kiss? Do you need me barking at you? Do you need me going at you? Do I have to fire you up? So what I'm good at is people, and I'm a good judge of character. But you have to have them characters, and you have to, whenever you're signing players, for instance, you have to identify. Whenever I sign a player, I get all the background check and find out what kind of personality he is, what kind of character he is, and I do all them things before I sign a player. That's hugely important. So whenever we were doing that, going through that process, whenever we went in at Ards, for instance, you're right, every job I've had has been picking up pieces and no foundation there. And that includes right throughout my career. And we'll go on to Carrick, which was the same situation. But for the likes when we went in at Ards, honesty. And the fact that you want them to love you. I want players to love me, but I want players to also fear me. And I want them to know if they cross the line with me, or they step out of the line with me, or they don't give me 100%, this is the door. And that's just the way it is. You give me 100% every game and you're not good enough, I can accept that. And the performance isn't good enough, I can accept that, no problem. But if you come off the pitch and you haven't given me 100%, and you could have given me more, then you won't be with me too long. But the most of the players, thankfully, that I've had in my career, you know, in the successful times especially, have given me every drop they've had. And that includes getting hammerings and you know, getting beat many times as well in the Premier League and stuff like that there. There wasn't too many times they would have come off the pitch and said, we could have done more. So for me, it's getting the very best out of them, getting to know people, getting to know what they need to get the best out of them, and making them believe as well. That's a huge part in giving them confidence and making them believe. But they have to want all this stuff. They have to want it as well. They have to want it more than me. I can be there for them. I can be their support for them. And as I say, you know, my main focus whenever I go into these situations is getting a camaraderie and getting a squad together, and getting everybody together. You know, I'm a great believer that if you've got a good changing room, you've got a chance. And that's my main focus whenever I go into any club that I go into. Anybody who wants to go their own way and be their own person and not be involved in the group won't be at the club. It's really as simple as that. We need everybody pulling in the same direction and everybody wanting the same things, and that's success.
So that was your second season at Ards, winning the league, and that obviously led to promotion to the Premier League. So your first taste of Premier League promotion, your first taste of Premier League football. Sorry.
Yeah, well, again,
as a manager,
it's the involvement. It's the involvement again for me. Whenever I look back on that time, you know, we took that championship winning team into the Premier League, and because I loved them, they were just a great bunch of players, and we were by far the best team in the championship that season. Once we went in there, I decided we'd add one or two experienced Premiership players to what we had, and you know, come Christmas time, I realised that unfortunately that it's going to be a long, hard season. So we did try and we brought in the likes of Alan Blaney's and Ran Reynolds, and a couple of odd ones from Linfield, and we tried to add experience, but a couple of them got injured straight away. Alan Blaney played one game, and then or 2 games, and he was out for about 3 months. So it just wasn't meant to be. And but it was a long, hard season, and I can tell you something now. I was probably the most toughest, you know, playing them last 3 or 4 games at Ards, knowing that you're relegated already. So you're just trying to see the season out, and you've got the players. You know, how do you give your team talk? What do you say? You know, go out and do your best, or you know. But we were down with 3 or 4 weeks to go, and the last 3 or 4 games were absolutely painful, and I mean painful. I remember being relieved on the last game of the season, and listen, I just said to the players thanks, because I always remember they got us up. They got us promoted. They won a championship. It was some achievement. The Ards hadn't been near winning a championship in 10 years, so we got a fantastic promotion. And then, well, obviously the Premiership season was a horror show. It really was, and it was sad as well because, you know, you then have to rebuild for the championship again, and a few of them were a wee bit older, but we kept the nucleus again. And we went again the following season. We brought in 7, 8, maybe 6 or 7 players, started the following for the championship season. We were able to win the championship again. What I learnt that I couldn't do was the same, and this is where me and Brian Adams sat down. We put our structure in place, and we both came to the conclusion, we agreed we need to sign bottom 6 experienced Premiership players if we're going to stay in the league this time. And that's exactly what we've done. So we signed 5 or 6 guys that come in, and they had that bottom 6 experience of playing 100, 150 games in the Premier League, and we brought 6 or 7 of them guys in, maybe 8 or 9, and added. We kept what we thought was still good enough to do a good job, but it was basically a new team. And whenever we went into that 3rd season in the Premier League, I think we were sitting 6th whenever I made the lovely choice to come to Portadown. 6th or 7th, I think. We were doing fantastically well.
So you're going so well, you know, you obviously learnt a lot from your first season in the Premiership to kind of make sure you didn't make them same mistakes again. What was it that took you away from Ards to Portadown at the time, which at this club at the time was a pretty poor situation to be in? That was a real tough decision. I had been at Ards
over 6 years. And I do think sometimes that a manager can stay too long, things go a wee bit stale and everything's accepted. Whether it's 6 years, I'm not sure. Maybe 7 or 8 years will probably be. But I think the fact that ours were sitting in we weren't getting relegated. We were sitting in a situation where we were definitely going to stay up with the points that we had left them with. And Colin Nixon came in and then done real well with that group of players again. But for me, they were safe, and I always wanted to finish a full season and say, look, I told you I could manage in the Premier League. I told you so. You all called me a championship manager and all this. I told you I could manage in the Premier League. And I remember leaving that season and regretting it, in regards to, not regretting coming to Portadown, but regretting the fact that I never finished the season. It's not my CV that I kept odds up, in the Premier League. But I think, again, whenever Portadown came in from in 16, I think it was just a case of heart ruling everything. Me and Brian Adams had been real good friends and really close. I remember whenever he signed off on my contract, I went down to the Ards game on the Friday night and we were up in the room and he signed off on the contract and cancelled my contract and both of us were crying. There was tears in both our eyes. It was a real heart-wrenching moment because we had this fantastic relationship, but it had, he knew where I was coming from. Mm-hmm. It was my hometown club. This is a huge club, and I think every manager that comes in here thinks that they can get this beast back up and running again, And I thought the same thing. In hindsight, I didn't realise a lot of the bad situations were at the club. I thought most of them had been cleared up, but there were still some situations. Whenever the first night I came to training to take a training session, I then got an eye opener on what exactly was. There was a lot of issues going on, and as I've said many times, my first experience at this great club was one of I didn't get time to manage the football side of it. I was firefighting every angle on different subjects and different topics, and I ended up being took away dealing with this, that, and the other, and I never got focused properly, and I was just doing multitasking everything here, and it was tough to deal with a lot of unhappy players, a lot of players that wanted to leave the club, and it's hard to get a tune out of players like that. We did get a wee raise for a few games, but ultimately I think when whenever I came in, it was a dire situation in regards to the league, but it was even worse. It was really hard dealing with players that you knew didn't want to be at this club, because I'm from this town and I know how important it is for the people of this town that whenever you put that red jersey on, you got to show passion, you got to show that you care. And a lot of the guys, unfortunately, the first time, they didn't want to, they wanted initially, whenever I came in, it was fine. I'll try and sort this out, I'll try and sort that out, and we got a good response initially. But once the things weren't getting sorted out and the wee period went on, then it was down tools kind of scenario to a certain degree, and can't blame them. I didn't point the finger at any of the players. They had a reason for not to be happy, and unfortunately, I was the one trying to firefight them situations, and that's a situation I never ever want to be in again. But when you come to the end of the season again, it was going to be a total rebuild, and so we had that there job on and rebuilding the whole squad, and we had to. I think we finished the season against Dungannon Swifts in that season with, I think I debuted a 15-year-old goalkeeper, and I had, I think, 6 or 7 17-year-olds played against Dungannon that day, in the last game of the season in the Premier League. So we knew that we had a total rebuild to do for the championship season, and that's what we've done. We were able to keep a couple of players. We signed Adam Sally and stuff like that there, and we went into that championship season, I think, with 16 new players, 17 new players. Again, no choice. We had it wasn't my choice, it was a fact that all the players had absolutely gone, and we had some great kids. We had Nadas Makielanis, who's now scoring goals against me for Carrick Rangers. We had Luke Wilson, we had Jackson Holmes, we had young Hughes, who went over he's actually at Liverpool at the moment, the goalkeeper, the 15-year-old that made his debut for me. So we had a lot of kids on, and we kept them. We were able to keep them, and Lee Upton, for instance, was another one. But we were able to keep them, but we needed senior experience. And whenever you're bringing in that gluttony of players, you're bringing in 16, 17 players. I'm not perfect. You don't get it all them right, but as it proved with Carrick, you don't get them all right. So you need that January window to rectify and tinker a wee bit with 3 or 4 situations. And unfortunately, I didn't get that. And that's that to me, I think we were sitting 4th or 5th in the league. I was sitting 6th in the league with Carrick whenever I got them promoted that season at the same time in January time. So to me, I regret that we weren't able to tinker with 3 or 4 new players in the January window, and the fact that we'd lost all our front line basically. We had lost Stephen Lavery with a long-term injury and Jamie Douglas with a long-term injury. We had Adam Solly was the only striker we had. I remember actually throwing in my second last game, throwing Ross Larkin, our big centre half, and playing him up front because we had nobody else at the time. So it was tough. It was tough whenever I got the conversation in the hallway. I thought it was a wee bit hard done by. I definitely did. But time's a great healer, they say. So it was what it was, and then it was on to the next journey.
And just on your first time at Portadown, with the way you left Ards and things that materialised here, do you regret coming that time, or do you wish things had been different? Or do you just accept that that's the way it was just meant to be like that? And
I just look at that situation, the right guy at the wrong time. I think sometimes football is about timing as well. I let my heart, listen, Portadown, when Portadown come for me, it's always going to be really difficult. I know a lot of people said they couldn't believe that it came back again, but again, you just believe in yourself, and I'm a completely different manager now than I was in 2016 when I was here. I've got the people around me that'll take a lot away from me and let me focus on the team, let me focus on analysis, let me focus on systems, and let me focus on getting the best out of the players. And that's what I'm best at.
So your time at Portadown, first time round, came to an end, and then there was maybe a few months, was there, in between the next job?
Yeah, it would be December time, so January, February, March, April. It was the summer. Once the season was over, the Carrick Rangers job came up before the pre-season started, and Big Davy Mack had been in there, so it was pretty late in the day. He resigned, and then I got a phone call to ask would I apply for the Carrick job, and so I went and I met Peter Clark and I met Michael Hughes and the main men basically. And done my interview that night, and they offered me a job. Must be good at interviewing because I got a job offer a couple of days later again. So I know there was a lot of people in for that job at the time, but again it was the same situation, Matthew. It was just relegated out of the Premier League and no player signed.
You must know that going into a situation. Do you welcome that, or do you kind of say, do you not say to yourself, "Oh, not this again," or do you kind of go, "Right, let's get stuck into it"? Because you obviously, most of them jobs, you know what you're going into.
Yeah.
It's not as if you're going in blind. You're obviously an experienced manager, and you know the Irish League, and you know them positions. You must thrive under that kind of thing, do you?
To me, it's like, well, I've done it before. You know what I mean? It's nothing new to me. Going to Carrick in that situation with having no players and being relegated out of the Premier League, had it, been there and done it. I've done it twice. I've done it 2 or 3 times actually. So to me, that doesn't fear me. It's a rebuild, and I've done that many rebuilds now. It's that it doesn't scare me. But again, it's just about the realism of the Carrick board at that time, and I have to give them a lot of credit. The realism of Peter Clark and Michael Crooks and these guys. They didn't put me under pressure. They just turned around to me and said, "Listen, we understand we've just been relegated from the Premier League. We also understand that top 6, if you finish us in the top 6 this season, that's a progression, and we'll be delighted with that. And see, for me, instead of going into the normal circumstances of you need to keep us up or you need to win the league or these, I thought it was a heaven sent, because I did say to them, because Carrickfergus is far away in regards to my network of players. So any players, old friends that I have in the game, and I'm going knocking their door and saying, "Will you come up?" They're going to Carrick now,
Yeah.
and the money wasn't really worth travelling up to Carrick 3 times a week if you've got a new baby or you've got a new family and stuff like that there. So I'd lost my network, so I had to delve into different networks, and that's why I brought in. I changed my whole background. I brought in Clifford Adams, who was ex-Ballyclare manager, who I knew. I used to call him the biggest tapper-upper in the country because he knows every player in the world. He knows every player in this country. So when I knew by bringing him in, recruitment would be a massive help to me. And as I say, and we brought John Mackin, who was just an up and coming coach at that time, and we had wee John Bailey, who had done the Milk Cups and stuff like that there. So we were able to get a network of guys that could branch out to the Belfast area and around them kind of areas, Newton Orange, Belfast, Carrickfergus, Lauren and stuff like that there. We were able to branch out a network where we could get people that were only travelling from Belfast to Carrick, which is 15 minutes, from Newton Orange to Carrick. So a basis that we could get players. I couldn't really get anybody coming from Portadown to Carrick for what was on offer, Yeah. So these guys were brilliant in regards to recruitment. Clevy would have came to me and he said, such and such, such and such, such and such. So I'd have sat down with them, I'd have seen what their pedigree was, I'd have seen and ultimately I was basically reliant on Cliffy and John Mack saying, good quality, sign him, gaffer. And I had to turn around now and I'm okay with that. And then it's ultimately we were able to gather a squad. But as I said to you before, we were in a situation with Carrick. We lost our first 4 games, and I remember my first home game. Dundalk beat us 5, and I remember one of the Carrick supporters shouting over to me, and we were coming off the pitch, and he shouts over to me, "Now, you must be mad, son. You must be mad." And he says, "What are you doing here?" And I turn around and he says, "I'll sort it." Because I remember it was a really, really humiliating day because it was the first game of the season. We had a real good crowd out, the sun was shining, and it was a beautiful day. The grass was all green, and we had a new squad assembled, so the expectations from everybody was, "Oh, yep, we're looking forward to the season here. Niall's here, and we'll get it." We're hammered 5. I think it could have been 6, but we got a good beating, and then we lost the next 2 or 3 games. And then that's whenever we just sat down, and as I said to you before, we had Mark Sersner, who was playing on the 6 for us, and Mark was 31 at the time. So for me, we played him in the 6 in the games, and I thought we needed a different dynamic, and so we decided to try the 3 at the back, the 3 centre halves. And we had, Mark dropping into centre half was fantastic with his experience. He played centre half for many, many years at Ballymena and stuff like that. So him dropping into the middle, and we had Pace and Chrissy Rogers and Big Keelan Lockburn as well. So it ended up, we had 3 really, really decent centre halves. And we had Lee Chapman, who was a right winger. We converted him into a right wing back. And we had Rhys Neal, who was great going forward, up and down like a yo-yo. So he was a fantastic left wing back. Then we were able to get the 3 in the midfield, and then we were able to get our 2 strikers up top again, which I hadn't had for years. And I always loved 2 strikers up top, So we were able to get that in place, and we threw it together. We threw it together and said, listen, we've lost 4 games, It's not going to get much worse. So we'll try something. So we worked on that on the Tuesday, Thursday, and we didn't really look back. And from that time, I think if you see any players that you see me signing, you'll see that we sign players to fit our system now. We don't sign wingers anymore. We don't, I get offered so many wingers all the time, and every old club will bite your arm off them. But we're looking at wing backs, and we're looking at strikers. And we want 2 quickies. We want two strong boys, and everything's basic. We want 2 mobile centre halves on the outside. We want a dominant number 5. So everything's in place. We know the system very well. We love the system. I think when it's played right and you have the right personnel, it's a fantastic system because it plays against everything basically.
So that way changing system at Carrick then was the kind of catalyst to lead on to some success then?
Yeah, I think we were. It was a system I've looked at for a long time. It was actually my old friend Jay Willis he kept saying to me, Gaffer, try 3 at the back, or we Gary Duke as well. You got to try the 3 at the back and get their wing backs high, stuff like that there. And I just no, back 4. That's it. I'm not looking right. But 2, 3 centre halves and 5 at the back and all this here. So I said no consistently, and then I remember just speaking to Clippy and speaking to Mac after we got beat down at Limavady, and I said we need to change something. Something needs to change, and then I came up with a suggestion that, listen, well, what about moving Mark into the middle and going for the 3? Worked on it on the Tuesday, worked on it on the Thursday, and we won on the Saturday. And it was a real once we got that first win on the Saturday, because whenever you're talking to the players and you're saying, right, we're going to move to 3-5-2 or whatever it is, the players go, what? Really? I have never played in that now, so you get all that there. But once we got our first win, we were able to go into the change room, carrying on and go, told you so, what's the problem? And the fact that we were able to get, again, 2 strikers up at the top end and press from the front, along with our number 10, wee Lloyd Anderson. So we basically, whenever we didn't have the ball, our front press would have been 3. So we'd have said there are 2 strikers to split, make sure the fullbacks don't get out, and would have said their number 10 to be brave and go in and close the centre halves down if they want to travel out with the ball. So to me, it was a very simple system, because you were able to match up the 3 in the middle of the park. You're able to go into a back 3, a back 4, or a back 5 at any time with the rope-a-dope with the wing backs. And again, 2 strikers up top really floats my boat. And I like that pressure that we can do. We can turn teams around now, and we can play in behind them, and we can get guys to hold it up and get third man runs off our number 10. So yeah, it's a system that's landed on us. And listen, we kept Carrick in the Premier League for 3 years doing that system, and on the lowest budget in the league by an absolute country mile. So that's a system that you certainly can be competitive in games against the big boys, even then, if you have a really, really good day.
So you gained promotion to the Premiership with Carrick, and then you must have ticked off the CV of being a Premiership manager, because you managed to keep Carrick in the Premiership.
We got there in the end. So that was my. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I would have been asked. I don't think I would have been asked back to Portadown without my Carrick experience. To be honest, I think the fact that I kept Carrick in the Premier League for them seasons showed everybody that I'm more than just a Championship manager. And it was a tag that was labelled that man for many years. Even though I've won everything in the Championship. I think God, I don't know how many, but it'll always stick with you. You stick that there until you get to cross that line, and keeping Carrick in the Premier League for them seasons, I think it proved to everybody, this guy knows what he's doing. He's not just a top championship manager. This guy knows what he's doing. And to be able to keep Carrick in the Premier League was some achievement in regards to the budget that we had.
Is that something, from a personal point of view, you would carry around, proving people wrong?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, there's no pleasing everybody. I think what I've learned over the years is, sometimes I take things I used to take things a lot more personally. If somebody would have called me a Championship manager, or if I was doing an interview or something like that, and somebody said about, they would constantly revert back to your Championship success. And I used to go to myself, that really bugs me, boy. And I used to take it personally. I used to say, something like, I've been managing in the Premier League, I kept odds I still looked at keeping odds in the Premier League, but nobody had, because I didn't finish the season. And then it doesn't matter to anybody. But I think when we got the icing on the cake, whenever we kept Carrick in the Premier League for them seasons, and on such a low budget, I think that filtered through now. So probably whenever I left Carrick, and when I resigned from Carrick, I think people, from the likes of a club like Portadown, maybe went, yeah, he knows what he's doing, and he's now proved it. It's took 10 years, but he's now proved that he can manage in the Premier League, and he can compete with the big boys. So for me, I think that was the huge reason why I ended up back at the club.
And then, having so much success with Carrick, keeping in the Premier League on such a small budget for so long, your time at Carrick came to an end. I remember it just kind of came out of the blue.
Yeah.
As I remember watching a post-match interview with maybe on their YouTube or something, and you just kind of said it.
Yeah, I hadn't told anybody. There's just been stuff going on in the background that I wasn't really, really uncomfortable about. And that's not a slight on anybody. It is what it is. Sometimes you have personality clashes with people. But I was treated brilliantly by Carrick. I have absolutely no complaints. but I'd like to think that Carrick appreciated what I done as well. You know, so I just felt at the time that there was no way forward, and unfortunately the relationship had broken down to a certain degree. So, but never hold any grudges. I don't hold grudges for anybody. I had a wonderful, you know, I thank the club for giving me the opportunity that they gave me. And as I say, I had a wonderful time at Carrick. I've nothing but the best hopes and ambitions for them. I'm delighted to see them doing well on the building that we done. So for me, a brilliant club, brilliant experience, and you know, no regrets. It is what it is sometimes in football, and you know, I can be pig-headed sometimes as well. You know, so I think when two bulls lock horns, sometimes that's the way it goes. Somebody's got to go, and it's always the manager. Let's be honest about it.
So that then led to a few months out of the game until the next venture came up.
My golf handicap was going great again. I think it was it was
just not stick at the golf.
3 or 4 months. I had got my handicap down to 12. I started off whenever I quit football. You know, I was thinking I was playing off 18, 19. So by the time I had my 4 or 5 months sabbatical there, just playing golf consistently, I down to 12, and I was winning a few tournaments and all around the club. They were calling me names around the Portadown Golf Club. So and then I got a call out of the blue from big Mark Snodden at Dundalk. Hadn't thought about football. Had no interest really. I had been soured a wee bit by the last days at Carrick, but it was a project that, you know, it was like, not really. At the start, I was just like, not really. I'm not, you know, Belfast again, travelling again, you know. So it wasn't until actually I went down and, you know, I'm at the club, and I met Big Mark, and he showed me around the place, and he showed me how the progression of the club, the new floodlights, the pitch was immaculate, the changing rooms were unbelievable. And, you know, obviously I knew all about the history of the club, but they were ambitious. They were showing ambition. You know, they wanted to kick things on. You know, and I like that. I'm up for that. There, if you're ambitious, then I think, and again, they were sitting bottom of the league. We're sitting 1 point after 8 games in the championship. So there was already quite a gap between them and the second and third teams. I think it was Institute and Queens at the time. So there was a huge gap there to close up for a start. But I just, again, I don't fear them things. Them things don't, as long as whenever I spoke to Paul Moore and I spoke with Jimmy Steed and Big Mark, it was a situation where I just wanted to hear their ambitions. You know, I knew it was a great family club. I knew it was, you know, they treated my mum unbelievable. My mum goes to all my games, and she drives down the car and smokes her brains out the window. And then she comes in, and them guys treat her like a queen. She was like Queen, Lily, the Queen. She opened the door, come on in, Mrs. Currie. Got her coffee, got her sandwiches. She sat and watched the match, and you know, they treated her unbelievably. And a wonderful family club. I had the best time. I had a real ball at that club, and I enjoyed it so much. And it really invigorated me again into football. It gave me a purpose. It wasn't really, there was a pressurised situation to get them out of trouble and get them away from relegation. And that took quite, we lost our first 3 or 4 games again by changing system, yes. But that's how we believe in doing it. You know, you have to take some pain to get your rewards in the end. Mm-hmm. And come the end of that season, we nearly finished in the top 6, which was an unbelievable achievement. Finished on 50 odd points from going in with 1. And but in that time, everybody had come on board in regards to the system. 3-5-2 and the 3 centre backs. We went in and done the same again. The boys had played 4-2-3-1 most of the season. They had played 3-5-2 the odd time and been beat. But we drilled it in constant training sessions. Shape. And they were fantastic. And again, we had I think Cliffy, John Mack and everybody would say, we had a ball at that club. We had so much fun, so much lovely people. So some really great nights in the social club and stuff like that there. And, you know, it became a real, and once we got to the end of the season, you know, everybody was over the moon where we finished. And then the second season, you know, we went in there and we added 6-7 really new players, and we were flying and we were doing really well. We beat Carrick on the Tuesday night in the League Cup 4 down at their place, and they had their full team out that night. And we were we had built a really, really good top championship team. as good as a lot. I can tell you that. And again, just out of the blue, I got a call from Portadown. I'll be honest, and I've said it before, and people won't believe me. You know, I had stayed at Dundalk for a long, long time.
Would this have been the only club?
Absolutely.
The only club that would have picked you away?
Absolutely. 100%. And I know people won't believe me, but as I'm telling you now, 100%. I was so happy at Dundalk that it was. You know, you had everything you wanted. I had happiness. I was 49 years of age now. I'm not a baby anymore. I'm not a kid anymore. I don't socialise anymore or anything like that. I don't go out in discos and anything like that there. So for me, the importance of them showing appreciation to me and my mum and my family and doing anything that we wanted, we got. We got new vests, GPS vests at £3,500–4,000. We got nothing, everything. We got new bibs, balls, new kits, the whole lot. Everything that we asked for, we got at that club, and they bent over backwards for us. So for me, it was the happiest I'd been in a long, long time in any football. It was a family club. It was a fantastic club. And again, the biggest thing was, and I mean this, and I've said it numerous times, definitely wouldn't have left, only for Portadown. Portadown was the only club. We're sitting in we just beat Carrick 4 and we're sitting second in the league, a couple of points behind Loughall. Why would anybody want to leave? You know, that was the season I would have really fancied us to push Loughall right to the wire, and I think we would have. I think that team that we had built would have pushed Loughall right to the last day. So it would have been very interesting. But you know, Captain hindsight, I suppose. But I would have stayed there 100%. It was the happiest I've been in a long time in football, and a wonderful club, wonderful family club, and I had the best of time there, and I had no intentions of leaving. I know people won't believe me, but I had no intentions of going anywhere.
So when the Portadown job became vacant, you never thought, I would love to go back, or until before you received the phone call, that never, it never.
Never, and I can promise you, it never crossed my mind. Not once did it cross my mind to come back to Portadown. Point one, because you're sitting going, I'll never revisit that situation after the last time. Mm-hmm. Point two, they're probably sitting going, I wouldn't even ask now after what happened the last time. He's probably still holding his own court over that. So it never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind at any stage at all. And as I said to you, my main focus was, and I think everybody knew, like I knew Peter Honeyford, after everything that happened. Peter had been down at my Dundalk games. I had brought him down as a guest. Peter's a director here, and part of everything that goes on. I brought him down to Dundalk games, and watched Dundalk games with me, and we had a good few beers and all stuff like that there. So, it never ventured one thought in my mind that Portadown would ever ask me to come back.
So when you receive a phone call, then, especially when you're going so well, you've just beat Carrick in the cup, you're sitting second, and you've had no notions of going or moving or whatever. What changed in a phone call?
I think I'll prefer to say that I shook my head straight away. As soon as I looked up my phone, I remember I looked up my phone and I went, oh my goodness, that wasn't the words. Right, well, this is going to be a good crack here. So I lifted the phone and then it was, would you think about it? Would you give it some thought? And I said I would. I ended up saying, I'll have a think, and I'll speak to people that I trust and stuff like that. And but I knew straight away. You know what I mean? I was maybe wanting them to want me more, show me a wee bit more love, and I'll think about it. But as I say, what's that movie with? They had me at the first call, and once I took the call, then it became a case of doing things right by Dundalk and making the contact with Dundalk. Once I said to Portadown, I'll come back. Then I wanted things done right with Dundalk, and I knew Dundalk were going to be really, really disappointed, and I can totally understand that. But I think in speaking to Paul Moore, who's a good friend of mine down at Dundalk, I think Paul was really, really understanding about the whole situation. Didn't want me to go, obviously, and was heartbroken about what was happening. But he understood that it was my club, it was my town, and he understood that, and I made it clear to Paul that this was the only club that I would ever moved away from Dundalk for. Because I was at that stage at Dundalk where I was that happy. I didn't need anything else. if that makes sense. I was enjoying everything. My life was great. And I didn't need any pressures or anything like that there, any more stress levels. I was sitting in a really secure environment, great environment, and enjoying myself and living a great life. And the phone call came, but Paul was brilliant with me. He turned around, he said, "Listen, I knew you couldn't turn this down. I just know you too long." He just said, "I know you're not going to turn this down." And I said, "Paul," I says, "I am gutted about the whole thing, but this is something that I just think," as I said, that whenever I came back to the club, I just felt that I really, really had unfinished business. And that's how I viewed the whole situation. Whenever I decided to come back, I just said, I'm gonna give us a real rattle this time. And I know with the board that I have now, that everything's on paper, the contract's on paper this time, no handshakes or anything like that there. We've got a written contract, and they give me this season and 2 more seasons. And that's commitment to me. And that shows me, irregardless now, we're going to stick by you. We're going to back you no matter what happens this season. And we're going to give you time. If the worst case scenario happens, we're going to give you time to rebuild the squad and get the club back. But as I say, we're in a situation now where I think that was the mantra, really, if we're being honest about it. That they were giving me a commitment that they were going to give me time to rebuild the club again, in the pretense that we went down. Because I don't think anybody, I think if we're all honest, I think that everybody thought we were gone. But now we're in a different situation now where everybody's bouncing about the place and really, really hopeful. And, it's credit to the players for creating that their scenario.
So before you took the job, did you seek assurances that you weren't going into kind of the same situation as you were before?
Absolutely.
You kind of made all that, you just didn't go, yes, I'm in, and never really do any background check or any research or anything into it. You made sure that everything was above board, you could say.
Absolutely. No, I knew that we were coming into a situation completely different. The finances of the club, were in good condition now, and a solid basis there. So I knew all that was sorted out. There's no players owed money or anything like that there, and so I knew I was coming in from that point of view in a good environment. Certainly a secure environment. So for me, that was all okay. And as I said before, having Cliffy and having John and having we Stephen Hines and all women now, they take all any sideshow stuff. They just deal with it. So what it allows me to focus completely on the team, focus on the players themselves, and that's what I'm best at. That's what I think I'm best at. So these guys are amazing with me. And but yes, whenever I come in, I was happy with everything. I knew it was going to be a really, really tough season, the rest of the season, Matthew. But this is Portadown Football Club, and this is me. So hard on sleeve job, probably heart ruling ahead again to a certain degree. If I was wise, I wanted to stay stress free and not have grey hairs anymore. Then I probably should have stayed where I was, But this is such a huge club and such a beast of a club that there's nothing more that I would love to finish my career, my football career, obviously, and giving this place a good platform that they're going to be in the Premier League for a long, long time.
So you come in then, Portadown, everybody understands where they were, me included. I thought to myself, there's not a chance. There's not. What's he doing? What is he doing? He's done so well with Dundela.
You weren't the only one.
What is he doing? But then the likes of Ryan McConnell and stuff, who well, he said to me, if there's anybody can turn it around, it's Niall Currie can turn it around. So I'm guessing the first thing you done was change the system.
Yes.
And then,
we've got to know each other really well, haven't we?
How do you go about getting the club from where they were to, well, as we record now, we're one day out from the Dungannon game. Safety is in your own hands as we speak at the minute. Well, hopefully it is when this podcast comes out. But how do you go about starting to rebuild everything? Is it just using all your past experience of what you've done before?
I think so. Again, when we come in, the atmosphere in the changing rooms, I call it dead eyes. I have a word for it. Whenever you speak to players and you're trying to get a response out of people and you're trying to get them up for training, get them up for the game, get the intensity into the. Whenever I looked around a lot of the changing rooms, it was just dead eyes. And I'll probably say I'm very good at getting people pumped up and getting a nice buzz out of them, getting the intensity out of them. and I get to see dead eyes with too many. And for me, I was just probably on the back of them losing basically all their games, 9 or 10 games in the Premiership season, and confidence shot, belief shot, probably resigned the relegation already, and we had to go in and try and get that belief into them, try and get that confidence into them, but it was so hard, Matthew. It was I'd never in all my time went into a changing room that was so flat and so dead and so no life about it at all, and even with a new manager and new, like with Cliffy Adams, myself, and we're very passionate about what we do, and we can be boom, 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 and he's brilliant at it as well, but we were getting no responses, it was dead eyes. I call it dead eyes, and I was looking at guys, trying to get them railed up, trying to get the intensity in them, trying to get them their confidence back and stuff like that, and ultimately there was a few that it was over, and that's why that we had to change the squad massively. I think if you look at our team at the moment, there's 6 or 7 new players that we brought in January playing regularly now. Mm-hmm. So I think that tells its own story, if you know what I mean, Matthew. But you have to cure, and I said that to the players numerous times, even when we're getting beaten, we're getting taking our tankings from the big boys there right up to January time. We had 6 or 7 players lined up, all agreed that they were coming on the 1st of January. So we knew this was coming, so we had to keep on ticking it over till we got to January time. And thankfully, whenever January came, I was a relief man, because we were able to change the dynamics of the change rooms. We were able to bring in players that I knew, players that had been with me, players that would get into other players' ears and say, hey, you need to get your stuff together here. This guy will do this, or this guy will do that, or he'll do this and he'll do that there. So it was very important to change the whole dynamics of the changing rooms. I've said many times, the changing rooms should run themselves with proper characters, proper leaders, proper communicators, and proper winners. I call them winners, the guys that drag people out of the trenches and say whenever things are going bad, they're the guys that can lift you up and get you going again and fight right to the end. And we were able to do that there with the guys that we brought in the windows. The likes of McElroy, people think Paul McElroy's a quiet lad. Paul McElroy's a winner. Paul McElroy was able to come into my change room and say some things for me. Before I even got into the change rooms, if we were getting beat at half time or something, Paul McElroy would have come through the door, first game, and say, not acceptable, or whatever. Love that. I love that in people, I love that in players. I love players to express their emotions and absolutely speak their minds while you're coming in from certain situations. I'll always come in at half time and I'll stand back for 2 or 3 minutes and I'll let them all talk to each other or have a go at each other or do whatever they're doing with each other, and then I'll step in and then I'll give my appraisal of what just happened or what the disaster has been, as I would say. But we were able to, in the likes of the experience of Bushy, Cahir Friel, the experience of Paul Mack, experience of Chrissy Rogers, Owen McCall, the experience of these guys, was able to come straight into your change rooms and change the dynamics of the change rooms, because they were able to come into our change rooms and bring players with me, with Clippy, with the club and Hainsey and all this here, and bring each other together. And that's been a vital thing for the change rooms.
And what was the target, coming in? Because I think, if everybody's being honest, nobody would have imagined that you would be in the situation today that you were in, having arrived to the situation you'd arrived to, if you know what I mean.
100%.
Were you given a target? You said there you were given a 2.5, 3 year contract.
Yeah.
Personally, maybe within your own staff, did you think survival was, or the potential of survival was achievable, or what was how did you map the season out?
I think you just live in hope, I think you just live in hope, and that's just being honest. There's nobody's a miracle worker. These situations where it was dire, there's no doubt about that. What we said to the players was, listen, forget the league table. Don't even worry about the league table, but concentrate on our performance. And we get our own performance better than it has been. Like whenever we came to the club, we were averaging 8k over 90-minute football matches. Yeah. My Dundalk team were averaging 12.5 in the Championship 1. So that was the first port of call. Whenever we came into the club, that was the first port of call, going to GPS Fest and going, this isn't acceptable. You're not even running around the football pitch enough. Never forget about football quality. Forget about how good they are individually. Forget about their performances. You can't run, you can't play. And if you're only popping in 8.5k in a 90-minute game in the Irish Premier League, you're never going to win nothing. Or you're not going to win any football matches. So the first thing we'll drew that there, the attention to that there to the players straight away, because there's no excuse for it. It's quite simply no excuse for it. I left Dundalk, and Tony Kane, who's 35 years of age, a wonderful player. His last game for me was 14.5k in a championship game at 35 years of age, and we were averaging 8 to 8.5k over 90 minutes. With plenty of young players in there as well. So there is wee small things, Matthew, that you got to notify straight away. So whenever we come in and we done the analysis and what was going on, and we were able to do a GPS with, we knew straight away we're not fit enough. There's certainly something wrong, because we're obviously not fit enough. We actually done probably what you would describe as a mini pre-season for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And Tucker paying along with the results. We actually sacrificed some shape sessions and stuff like that there. But on Tuesday night, the boys got beasted, absolutely beasted for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And, I think if you look at our stats at the moment, our stats are 11.5 to 12.5, which is 3.5k extra from everybody is a huge, significant, gives you a chance. That's it, gives you much a better chance if you run around the pitch and not daddle around the pitch. So we're now having them fit. We're as fit as any bottom 6 team in the league, and that was the whole point of it. And as I say, you can't run, you can't play. So that was the first real thing that we noticed whenever we come in. And then after that there, you got to get them to believe. And you got to get as I said to you, bringing the guys in January time, a lot of people said you're only making a rod for your own back now, to be honest with you, because not how much is going to change. These guys, you're bringing 7 players in, you're letting 5 go and all this here. What's going to change? And I could have took the easy way out and just kept things as they were, brought 1 or 2 players in, and it would have been seen as giving it a go. But I just wanted to give it a proper go, and thankfully we've been able to get in a decent run. We're, as you said, Matthew, we're in this situation now where hope's eternal, and it's going to be an interesting weekend for sure. I'm not too sure my blood pressure is going to be too good over the weekend, so I might have to double up my medication. But I think we're all looking forward to it and we're excited about it.
So what's the ambitions, or what's the goals then long term? Obviously the worst case scenario, that might change a few things. If you manage to stay in the Premier League, that will obviously have different repercussions. Yeah. What's kind of like, what's the plans moving forward for the club?
I think we've covered all bases. I think we'll have a plan in place if the disaster happens. We'll have a plan and a structure in place for the championship season, and if we can pull off this miracle, if we can pull off this season, then the future's going to be bright for Portadown straight away. I have no doubts that come the end of the season, if we're still in the Premier League, I know it's enough, but if we're in the Premier League, this club will never be in a relegation fight with me ever again, because we will build them. If we stay in the Premier League, we have a nucleus of a very good bottom 6 Irish League team, and what all we'd really be looking to do if we stay in the Premier League is probably top up with a few players, and I think most of the guys at this club now at this present moment will be happy to stay here next season. So we would replenish and re-keep, quite a few of them guys, and then and we would try and add some more quality. So it's a huge difference between staying in the Premier League and going into the Championship. I think if we go into the Championship, we'll have a rebuild again. Obviously, budgets change, and some guys in there won't want to play in the Championship. If we're being honest about it. And we're sitting with basically all our players who are out of contract at the end of the season. So we're hopeful, very, very hopeful that the dream comes through and we can stay in the Prem. But listen, we'll cover all angles, and as I say, if the worst happens, then we'll have to restructure and rebuild again for the following season.
Well, as I said, as we're recording now, Premier League safety is in your own hands. And we wish you all the best for tomorrow, for which is a massive game for the club. And we thank you for coming on, and we wish you and the club all the best for the future.
Thanks very much, Matt. Absolute pleasure. I'll watch your show. Always enjoy it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.